Good morning. This is a special sunshiny day, and I want to teach you how to make my favorite dessert, which everybody asks for when I am cooking, or saying, what kind of dessert do you want? Very simple, with just a few ingredients and not a lot of skill is needed. So you're gonna have fun. You can make this with your children. They can help you make it and feel like it's a part of their own dessert. This isn't the recipe. I've included and I will put the recipe online. And this is what you should always have before you ever start thinking about cooking, is do you have the ingredients? And what equipment do you need? And then get everything out so that when you cook, you're not running around the kitchen and everything is just perfectly ready to go. Is we are going to make the crust and the bottom of the cake, as it were, or dessert. So, I'm gonna move my stuff over. When we make our one of these kinds of desserts, it uses both a liquid and dry ingredients. It's really important to have the right measuring cups. This is a liquid measuring cup. Could you measure everything in this? Yes. Would it necessarily be accurate? No. And would you have a consistent product? No. All right, so by using the right measuring cups, dry for dry, liquid for liquid, you will get a more consistently pleasing recipe. Okay, so I'm going to show you right now how to measure with these, because we are going to need to measure the flour for the crust, and we're making the crust first. To make the crust, we need 1.5 cups of flour. So when you're measuring flour, don't try to shake it down. Just spoon it into the cup, a little bit over the top, and then take any straight edge and pull it across. If you shake it down, you're gonna get too much flour and it's gonna become dry. So what we need to do, the recipe calls for 1.5 cups of flour. So I'm gonna measure the 1.5 cups of flour. And now we need to get butter, and the butter, it called for 1.5 sticks, and you want it softened. You don't want it really hard because it will make it too difficult to blend. So there's many ways of actually blending this. If you do not have a pastry blender, I'm going to use this because it's faster and easier. But if you don't have a pastry blender, you can just put the butter in lumps into the flour. And this is salted butter, not unsalted. If you had unsalted, then you would add 1/4 of a cup more, 1/4 of a teaspoon more of flour, of salt. Sorry about that. All right. So you put it in, and then you could just take your fingers and actually just bring it around like this and blend the two together. Okay, because what you're trying to do is get that butter all surrounded by flour, so that as it heats and melts, it gives you a nice flaky crust. Okay, I'm going to take these off now because I need to do this. So this is a pastry blender. It does the same thing as you're doing with your fingers, but faster. Okay. Okay, you want to get it till it's kind of thick and crumbly like that. You want it evenly distributed, no big pieces of butter left. All right, this is what it should look like, the dough when it's ready. And you want to have your chopped up nuts. I combined the nuts and the flour mixture, butter flour mixture, and I leveled it off first and then I pushed it down. I often use another piece of equipment. You could use the bottom of your measuring cup, the dry measuring cup, but you want to press it down really firmly, okay? And now I'm going to put it into a preheated oven, 350 degrees, and let it cook for 20 minutes. While the crust is baking, we can do two parts. The other two parts, which are going to be the layers. We're going to be making a pudding mixture, and this is the 6-ounce vanilla pudding. Just pour, and it has to be instant, okay? And the 6-ounce, I like chocolate fudge because I like it to taste really fudgy. Cookie mix, okay? And then I'm just going to stir them a little bit this way. And then we're going to add 3 cups of liquid. When you're making regular pudding, it's 3 cups per package. So what you want to do half the amount of milk or liquid that they ask when you combine 2 of them, because you want a very thick filling. So I'm going to pour this in, and then I'm going to start. My mixer is really strong, so yeah. Okay, I just finished mixing. What I did is I took the 2 different, the vanilla and the chocolate pudding mixes, 6 ounces each. Most of the time, the pudding, regular pudding, is 3 cups of milk to 1 package. But what we're doing here is we've mixed the 2 together. So we want a really thick filling so it doesn't get runny. So I mixed the 2 together and then mix it for 2 minutes after I did it. But the important thing is, I have a really strong mixer and it splatters everything. So either use a bigger bowl, or the other thing that you could do is just pour the liquid in slowly as you're mixing. All right, so this is now ready. You can see how thick that is, and it's just perfect. It will still thicken up a little bit. So we are going to take these off, and then we're going to mix our second layer, and that's the cream cheese and Cool Whip together. Now we're going to make the cream cheese filling. Very simply, there is a softened 8-ounce stick of cream cheese, and then I'm going to add to that, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to add to that 1 cup, I'll do half of it first, and then do the other half second, of powdered sugar, which will sweeten it just a bit. You don't want to put it all in at once because it'll splatter all over everywhere. And you will be wearing a white mask. Voila, we're done. This is the cream cheese filling, what it should look like. Once you get the cream cheese and the powdered sugar mix, we're going to take the large container, and it has to be the large one, of Cool Whip or whipped topping, and we're going to cut it in half, okay? And I'm going to take 1/2 of this and insert it into, mix it into the cream cheese. So what I did is I made sure at the end, after I whipped the Cool Whip into the cream cheese mixture, I made sure and went back underneath to get all of the pudding, make sure that the pudding mix or the cream cheese mixture and the whipping cream are well blended. Okay, that's really important because you don't want chunks of cream cheese filling without the whipping cream. Okay, now we're taking the crust out of the oven once it's slightly browned, and then we are going to let it cool. It has to cool completely before we put on the pudding layers and the cream cheese layers. Now that we have the crust finished, we're going to be layering it with the two different layers and a topping. The first is the cream cheese, which I've already put a little bit in here, and I'll just finish that. And then the second is the pudding layer, and then the third is the whipped topping layer, which I will then adorn with shaved chocolate. So I put the cream cheese in here. You want me to just put it? You might have noticed that I used an offset spatula. They come in narrower sizes, not as high, a little deeper, or even longer or shorter. And what it facilitates is a smooth spreading of the toppings and the layers. So that's if you have one, that would be a handy thing to use. Okay, also the nibs that I did here is really simple. You're basically taking some 60% chocolate, okay? And you are just taking what do we call this? A peeler, and just coming down the sides. And it makes chocolate nibs, all right? And then you just take those and sprinkle them on, okay? Use semi-sweet, either chocolate like this, or semi-sweet cocoa. And that's what this is. Do not use hot chocolate, okay? Or Mexican chocolate, because they won't go with what is happening. They're not strong enough and take away from the flavor. So I hope you enjoy this. You will absolutely love it, and your children and friends will ask for the recipe. Okay, there's one other thing. If you don't like chocolate and you want to do this whole thing, you can do the very same thing with lemon and put lemon pudding and vanilla pudding instead of the chocolate, and it will work out wonderfully. Okay, one of the things I failed to tell you when I got off earlier was that you have to refrigerate this for about 3 to 4 hours, and so make sure it stays refrigerated until you're ready to use it. The other thing that I think is really important for you to know, especially in this COVID virus environment, it's really important that anything, when you're cooking, anything that is going to be served raw or is not going to be cooked, you need to have more care in how you handle the food. Like I had my gloves on when I was doing the dough for the bottom of the crust, and I took it off, and I to get some of the cream cheese when I was doing that, or when I was mixing the butter, I used my fingers, okay, after I took my gloves off. Well, I wasn't concerned about it because that was going to go in the oven and it was going to bake when I was doing the crust. But when you're doing the things like the middle layer or any of the other layers, you really need to be careful and not lick, try not to squeeze around it, you know, but you have to use caution so that you're not transmitting any kind of diseases into it, because it's not going to be cooked and killed. So it's really, really important that when you're making a refrigerated dessert or something that's using eggs or eggs white, like tiramisu, absolutely, that is not cooked egg. Okay, so it's really important. So I hope you enjoy, and I'm glad you were with me on this session. So now I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. Thank you and have a good day.